Stop here, and today we are going to be comparing a scope versus a red dot, and we're going to go through the pros and cons of both these kind of optics, and see which one overall is better. So we're going to start off with the scope here. This is what most people have on this type of rifle. Some have it on their M4s. But we ain't worrying about that. We're just going to get into the specific specs of a scope overall versus the red dot and the pros and cons of it. So, this here is an Airsoft GI sporting scope. I don't think they even have these anymore, to be honest with you. So, scopes come in multiple different forms. You could get some ranging 3 to 9. You could get 1 to 3.5. You can get all sorts of different kind of zooms for scopes. You could get, depending what kind of range you're shooting for. So, right now we're going over the pros. So you have your adjuster knob here to whatever you can zoom in for. In this one particularly here is a 3 to 9 by 40, I'm pretty sure. So there's that. And then most of them have lens caps that come with them, and then most of them are tinted. So yeah, this is a 3 to 9 by 40. You see right there. So scopes, you could get multiple different mounts, but you do need a rail mount of some sort, a full size pretty much, because of the length. They have to be spread apart so you could attach them. But depending where you put the scope depends on how far you could shoot and the range you could shoot. Also, scopes only come in, well, this particular scope here, you take the caps off, you have to adjust the actual sight so your bullet goes accurate. This one particularly uses, you could use the caps here, you could use a penny, anything like that. You have to put in the slots there. There are this is a cheaper scope. Most people in the military never use this. So most of all scopes will have auto adjusting, like they have little squares, or you can actually twist the knob itself and to adjust for windage and your elevation and stuff like that. And most of them won't have this. If you're going by military, most people airsoft by the cheaper ones that you have to adjust with a screwdriver or something like that. The reticles vary inside the actual scope itself, but you have to buy a different scope depending on which kind of reticle you want inside the scope. This one particularly is a giant plus that goes across the whole thing, and then little bars for your elevation inside there. So there's that. There's also one with arrows. You see most of those on the Dragunov SVU in video games. There's in Battlefield 1 you see ones with just beams in the middle. They go up to the center, and then yeah. So there's multiple different forms of scopes, but you have to buy a different scope depending on what reticle you want. So that can get pricey. Some scopes do have the option so you can change the color, where you could change it from the standard issue non-illuminated. There's a button on it so you can illuminate your crosshair, but that does not make it a red dot. So basically the pro over the red dot here is that you have optimum zoom. You can change it to whatever frickin' zoom you want as long as the scope has it. The cons are that you have to buy a different scope depending on what reticle you want and things like that. And scopes get pretty pricey depending what kind of zoom you want, what kind of reticle you want, and all those things. So the price point also matters here, and it gets pretty pricey. They have scopes for over $1,000. So let's get on to the red dot, or just a site, you know. So this here, we'll just call it a red dot. So red dot sites can come in multiple different fashions and forms. This one here is just a red dot. Well, it's not just a red dot. Most red dot sites come with red and green, depending on how much you want to pay to get the option between red and green. Most of them will come in red. You could get some of them in green. Most of them come in just red. But this one particularly here has red and green. You can change the size of the dot or whatever you have set in there. So this one goes from, you can change your red to 1 to 5 on how big the dot gets, and then you can change the green from also 1 to 5. So technically, yeah. So you can change it on here, but that doesn't mean the inside reticle gets bigger, so your targets are illuminated and you can see them at far distances. Red dots are mostly meant for close range, but you could also buy a separate attachment for red dot sights that lets you, like in Battlefield 4, they have 2x magnifiers that go on the back, and then they flip off to the side for close range, and then you flip them up so you can get 3 times, because your red dots are 1 times, and then they'll add 2 more, so you get 3 times. So that's a pro, but that costs even more money. I don't think most people would even run that on an airsoft gun, because the price point, most people will probably run it on the real firearm. So red dots, you can get ones to change settings from a red dot. So this one here has a red dot, or just a dot. It has something like you would see on a holographic sight. Like you could see those in Battlefield 4, pretty much any shooter. You have just a plus, but it's a small plus. It doesn't take up the full lens inside. It's just a small little plus. And then you have one that has a plus and then a little circle inside with the dot for you to use. So you could get many variations to go inside your red dot here. So that's a pro, because you buy your specific red dots that you want with all the specs you want, and you can change your reticle inside. But your price can vary also on there, so it's a 50-50 chance on how much you want to pay. Red dots are pretty freaking cheap depending what kind you get. If you get red dot specific only, where you can't change any particular size of the red dot or anything like that, they're freaking cheap. This one, you could get, red dots overall are pretty cheap. So that's a pro. A con is the variable zoom. It's a one-time, I think most red dots, or all red dots, have a one-time zoom already set inside the scope, or pretty dang close. So then you have to buy the magnifier to put up, which is pretty expensive. So that's the con, is you can't see that far with these, so because you can't change the zoom. So there's pros and cons to both your red dot and your sniper scope, so it depends what you're using them for. This sniper scope, most people have their scopes on their SCARs and M4s and stuff like that, because if they're outdoors, because of the long range shooting. In indoor CQB, you don't want a scope at all, you want a red dot. So some people run the red dots in the field. The scope is limited to range and distance and all that fancy stuff. So overall, it's personal opinion, but I hope this helps your opinions on the matter and helps you decide on what you want. If you want a scope, if you want a red dot, it depends what you're doing overall. So I'm sorry I haven't posted for a while. I have a lot of school stuff to do. I probably won't post again for quite a while. I'm trying to get some gameplay footage, but I'll have an update video sometime for y'all. I really am trying to get gameplay footage and stuff like that. So I hope you guys, if you have any questions, put them down in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe. Sorry for not posting. I got caught up in schoolwork. I still am. So, I'm sorry. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe. Have a great one. Heat Soft out.